it also exacerbated the money supply in the economy, right? What happens when you get more liquidity in the markets, more liquidity in the economy, is the prices of goods and services go up. It's a supply and demand thing. There's more supply, then that means the demand is gonna, of course, essentially decrease, prices decrease. But if there's less supply, the demand increases. Well, if there's more liquidity, then guess what? Prices go up. Right? It's money floating around. Why wouldn't I charge you more money and you've got more money, right? That's the name of the game. Is to make is to make money. Or if prices ensue come down, it's because they're trying to entice. Why do you think they have sales at certain places? Don't get me wrong. Sometimes it's to move inventory. Sometimes it's simply to entice buying when people aren't buying. There are correlations between markets, economies, and things like that. One of them is going to be known as quantitative easing and quantitative tightening. Okay. This is inflationary gauge and measure number one. Quantitative easing is essentially when the government buys bonds. Okay, they're buying bonds, which is going to increase the money supply. It stimulates the economy and it lowers interest rates. So when the government does that, guess what's happening? They're easing monetary policy. So they're making it more easy for you to get access to capital. Where interest rates means you have more borrowers, right? More borrowers means you have more spenders. If I'm borrowing money to build a business, if I'm borrowing money to fund a house project, if I'm borrowing money to simply, because that's just how I live my life on debt, right? Like with my credit cards, my loans, and things like that, or just for the TV purchases and stuff like that. And interest rates are low. This is enticing me. Why do you think they say, oh, you get a interest rate, variable interest rate of 3%? 10%, things like that, right? It makes you want to buy. If they said, hey, we got you 24% 0.99% interest, yeah, I might want to stay clear of that, right? That money is too expensive. You're paying interest on that money, right? Someone's APR is someone else's APY. So the money that someone borrows is the money that someone else is earning. That's why when I put money into a debt account, like a high yield savings, you want a higher APY, right? And your percentage yield. Um, and in addition to that, what happens is, like I said, they're enticing spending, right? But as you spend, as more liquidity comes into the markets, inflation ticks up slowly because inflation is one of those things where the more money supply you have, the higher the cost of goods and services go. Again, if it's the money is there, you're gonna have to spend it because here's the thing. The producers, meaning the businesses, the companies that are making the products and services that you get, their costs of goods and services are going to be increasing as well. So they have to increase the cost and pass it along to the customer. It's widely known, or it's widely the conception, right? The theory is that businesses should increase their prices either every 6 to 9 months or 6 to 18 months, depending on inflation. The reason why they do that is so they can pass the cost of those increasing costs and goods and services to their customers, so they can continue to protect their revenues, their earnings, their bottom dollar, their free cash flow, their operating cash, right? They want to ensure the name of the game is marginalized, right? Increased margins, lower expenses. That's the name of the game. That's how businesses operate. That's how they stay lean and solvent. And that's how you should as well. The inverse to that is when the government sells bonds, what's known as quantitative easing. When government sells bonds, this is known as quantitative tightening. They're pulling liquidity out of the markets. Um, they're not enticing people to buy. They're deterring people from buying, right? Because money just got more expensive. If your interest rate on your car, on your home went from 0% or let's say 2% like it was during COVID to a year ago, right? 7%. Man, that $300,000 home just got that much more expensive. 1% to 7%, right? It's a lot of interest that's gonna be getting paid in between there. Or, of course, like I said, it's to deter the borrowing of money, right? Pulling liquidity out of the economy. And when that happens, of course, prices stabilize, right? And then inflation comes down by way of doing so. Because if I'm not borrowing money out the yin yang, if the world of businesses, people, company, if no one's borrowing money, then guess what? The money supply is going to slow down.